Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me without the microphone? Well, again, thank you. Thank you especially to Leigh Martell, who actually sent me the invitation. Thanks to a lot of people whose names I don't know who backed her up. I am very honored by the opportunity to talk to you all this evening. I'm honored to be in this room tonight with you men and women who not only know but are choosing to live every responsible American's duty to defend their communities. The need for what we are doing here and what we're doing at home in West Virginia is clearer and clearer as the months pass. In response to unprecedented displays of arrogance and stupidity in our governments, this year has seen a magnificent groundswell of protesting and organizing. But has it even slightly softened that arrogance or stopped the outright criminality of so many of the people that we pay to perform for us the limited tasks of government? I don't think so. This evening's gathering, interestingly, showcases two very different perspectives. We have politicians here asking us to employ them. At least one pretty good one that opened the evening. I like what he had to say. The fact that they are here talking to us instead of to a mob on the street corner leaves little doubt that they are good people. They will have good things to say about our Constitution and our free republic. I think probably, considering the alternatives, we should vote for them. But actually that will do very little to solve the grave problems that brought us here tonight. Their presence in this assembly actually represent two critically different conceptions of our society. Excuse me. We were all taught in school about three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. We were taught that these are there to check and balance each other. The Federalist Papers, voluminous commentaries on our constitutional system written by men who helped to write it, talk about the state governments and the federal balancing each other, actually opposing each other to prevent either from becoming tyrannical. Do we see any of these counterbalances working today? No, I don't think we do. All the elements of our servant government clearly are devoted to nothing much before the aggrandizement of their own power. We might ask, how did those wise men who were so beautifully inspired to create our system fail to anticipate this? Should they not have added a police branch to our government to keep it all honest? Well, does anyone here think that that would have worked? Does the employee often arrest the boss when he gets out of line? So, let us go back to the first words of our Constitution. We, the people, to secure the blessings of liberty, do ordain. I guess we are the boss. We created a system for the explicit purpose of securing the blessings of liberty. Now, the laws of nature enforce themselves. A hungry cat will hunt. A dropped stone will fall. Because God gave us humans free will, and we chose to misuse it at the very beginning, human law, derived, if it is true law, from the law of God, is different. We can, and often do, choose to break it. So it requires, on the human level, to have an orderly society where we don't have to look behind us every moment. It requires enforcement. For every law that we have is enforced, from ridiculous parking and zoning regulations to laws against robbery and murder. Every law except one. Have you noticed that the Constitution, our country's most fundamental law, is the law that every public employee, almost every public employee, knows he can get away with breaking? That is not a fault of our constitutional system. It is our fault. Until this moment, some of you might say, well, I did not know what to do about it, but I'm going to take that away from you. Our founders' natural, necessary, inspired, and world-shaking solution is found in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15.
Excuse me, I got to fix something.
Thank you. There's a little feedback there. Much better.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 of our Constitution states that the servant government must organize. Wait a minute, getting ahead of myself. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 states that as militia, we, the people, are ourselves to execute the laws of the Union. Today, when we have all been bullied to live in constant fear of the virus, you might call it the Constitution's immune system. The Constitution goes on in the very next clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16, to say that the servant government must organize, arm, train, and appoint officers to the militia. This ensures that militia is recognized as legitimate, that its effectiveness can be relied on, that it can be summoned to needs outside its own immediate community, and that it is a clearly coordinated part of the legal system, while retaining its station as superior to the official apparatus because it is, in George Mason's words, the whole people. But since the end of Lincoln's war, we the people have allowed our state and federal governments to become lazy and arrogant, to utterly neglect to provide for militia as we require in our highest law. Far worse, our rogue servants have tried to destroy the sovereign power of the people in militia by redefining it and limiting our access to its essential tools. So, is this noble muster we're doing today futile? Have our lawless servants boxed us in, stolen not only our rights but our sovereign power as militia, leaving slavery or insurrection as our only options? No, emphatically no. Our Declaration of Independence, the first organic law of our republic, in which we set forth for all time the principles of legitimate government, which our Constitution puts into practice, catalogs the crimes of King George III, the poster child, if you will, of illegitimate government. You guys probably remember this. I've read the Constitution on the courthouse steps for 19 years now in Pocahontas County, so I'm a little familiar with it. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, return to the people at large for their exercise. Unquestionably, the people's delegation of power or duty to a servant who then refuses to properly exercise it does not and cannot annihilate. It returns to we the people, to delegate to a more trusty servant or to exercise ourselves. So the fact that we are here tonight with countless counties and cities all over our republic are now attempting to take up the task of defending our Constitution as well as our communities as militia. The fact that we are doing this is absolutely correct, although the precise approaches so far used are somewhat lacking. Sanctuary resolutions, such as have been passed in this county and all over this state, are a well-intentioned but weak-kneed borrowing from the lawless left, and no militia resolution, such as I believe Tazewell and Lee counties have passed, has to my knowledge yet led to actual establishment of a constitutional militia. Since the federal and state palaces have slipped their leashes, a mere resolution is no solution. It is no more enough to merely resolve that a certain lawless, quote, law will not run in one's county than it is to declare a sanctuary where we will hide from it. Well, okay. So we need to enforce our highest law, and militia, that's us, is the means. And it is legitimate. But what does that actually look like in practice? Everyone is perhaps most familiar with the fighting side of militia, although most established groups actually spend most of their energy providing a wide range of community services, as well as training for confrontation, such as disaster response and many types of community assistance. But militia's crucial and constitutional law enforcement role has been in total eclipse. This is partly because of the total failure that I mentioned of power-hungry politicians to provide mandatory official support and recognition, but partly because of ignorance of the other ancient pre-constitutional law enforcement organ native to our common law heritage, that's called the grand jury. The grand jury has roots over 1,000 years old. It is not supposed to be the lapdog or the rubber stamp of prosecutors and judges. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who didn't die of natural causes, explained as recently as 1992 in the case U.S. versus Williams, the grand jury is we the people ourselves, empaneled by a court or sheriff, but completely outside their control by design. The grand jury has the authority to investigate any wrongdoing in its jurisdiction, to examine records, summon witnesses by subpoena, and hand down felony indictments. Drawing on the people's intimate knowledge of their own community and with its total independence of and superior authority to the servant government, the grand jury is the American people's ideal and natural process to uncover official lawlessness and corruption, even in judges, prosecutors, sheriffs, and legislators. As embodying the power of law and truth, grand jury is the perfect and necessary partner to the armed power of militia. A grand jury, even if it knows its full power and duty, cannot reach official corruption or organized crime if it has only the often political, career-protecting paid police agencies to execute its warrants. And militia, however well trained and armed, cannot lawfully stop crime or bring criminals to trial without evidence and formal charge. Our founders not only defined government's legitimacy as deriving from its protection of our rights, they gave us the tools and the duty to keep it on the job. Hiding in a sanctuary is for medieval serfs, not only craven but futile. Now, I hope you know that what you are gathered here tonight to do is more important and more effective even than you may have imagined. I am a co-founder of a plan and organization called Tactical Civics. We have developed a constitutional rights protection and militia establishment ordinance that can bring this partnership to any independent community, county, or county equivalent. We've given what we hope is the catchy name American Militia 2.0 to constitutional militia co-deployed with an educated, briefed, supported grand jury. This will not merely supplement the effectiveness of existing police, sheriff, and emergency management units. The restored militia of America's counties will secure the rights of citizens by enforcing our federal and state constitutions and all laws made in pursuance thereof, even against government officials at all levels, our employees, where paid police agencies may be unable or unwilling to do so. Here are a few examples of how it can work. Let's say that all restaurants have now been closed by order of the governor, or all businesses, or firearms are banned, as I mentioned happened in Saluda County, South Carolina. Let us say you have a restaurant that has some sense and wants to protect public health and respect those who fear the virus, but does not want to go out of business and deprive their patrons of a valued service and their employees of jobs. So the owner talks to a local doctor perhaps and to the local health department, and together they decide that increasing table spacing on their own initiative, maybe ramping up ventilation or setting up tables outside in the fresh air, will provide a reasonable degree of safety for people who want to make their own decision to eat a meal there. Maybe they have decided that the whole virus scare is nonsense and they want to go completely back to normal. After all, no one has to eat there. Let's say your Chamber of Commerce gets together with a doctor and maybe the health department and decides that a lot of very important local businesses, machine shops, welding shops, service garages, and gas stations never have concentrations of people in them, and so can keep contributing to the safety and productivity of your community without endangering anyone. What if your mayor tells your police to let rioters destroy your town? And the guns. Red flags on the horizon, outright prohibition. If this county has adopted our ordinance to secure constitutional rights and establish militia, then freedom and prudence become enforceable against mindless, one-size-fits-all, hysterical totalitarianism in this county. We are not talking about nor advocating violent confrontations, only about localities standing for the law and common sense by the procedures set forth by our founders. If your local paid police have been told not to do their jobs, you can. If state or federal government actually sends agents to enforce orders that break the law, your alert and connected militia will know they are coming. Every government employee is sworn to uphold the same Constitution we hold so dear in this room, and I will tell you that I'm pretty sure that the ones sent against you are almost certain to be relieved to be told that they will simply not be given the chance to break that oath, and a way will be found for them to stand down. In the unlikely event that they are true outlaws with no loyalty to oath or law, then they may have to be dealt with accordingly. But one way or another, law and peace and liberty will be secured in your community, this community, our community. Oh, and that mayor who told police to stay home, he can be on the way to jail for conspiracy with the rioters. even if he's the prosecutor's son-in-law. When the next county oversees what you have, I'll bet they'll want some too. And so freedom and common sense and rule of law will begin to spread again, like the cool airs of autumn after a sweaty summer. The rest of the Tactical Civics program, we call it A New Way of Life, goes far beyond this action in your own community. We have a plan called Our First Right to break Congress into small districts as the founders intended, to bring them home under our immediate supervision. We have a thing called the indictment engine to stop government law breaking before it starts. We're partnering with John Guandolo's anti-jihad courses, and we have a dozen and a half draconian reform laws that we hope the restored Congress will roll out over decades to restore all that we the people have lost to lawless servants. At this writing, Tactical Civics has 217 county chapters scattered across the country, ready and willing to work with militia groups, sheriffs, county governments, local gun dealers, and shooting ranges to bring not only new security, restored freedom, but a new, healthful, social, community-building outlet like we have in this room to all Americans. Tonight can, and I hope will be, much more than a muster for community defense. It can, and I will offer that it must be the first step back to the restoration and securing of the constitutional freedom that our founders wrote, fought, and died for. I have literature about the program. I will stay as long as anyone wants to talk about the details. This is something we can get together and start to bring to pass. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.